Welcome back to Troll Time. I'm your host, Ivan D. Curtis, aka the Troll King, and this is a show where we talk sports, movies, or anything thought provoking. Today we'll be talking USC, Notre Dame, South Carolina, and UCLA. A little bit of college football. Of course, we got to cover our Colorado Buffaloes, and a sprinkle of the NFL. Of course, if you've been keeping up with this show, you know I don't do it by myself. My brother and my right hand man, hey Willie, what's going on with you?
Hey man, it was yesterday. Got off. If we could end it off on a high note, because I've been in Baltimore, but my boo, the Ravens, as a team, were in my city in LA, so I was able to stay at the crib and still see my boo and look at the Raiders. They knew I had somebody over at the house, man. So that was good. But other than that, man, I'm happy that we having this conversation, bro.
All right, just hopping right into it. Number 3 USC against number 6 Notre Dame. It was in LA. Notre Dame got the best of them, 74-61. Really, a highly anticipated game. Probably one of the most highest rated games as far as ranked opponents early in this season. Of course, Juju Watkins finished with 24 points on 20 of 25 shooting, 6 rebounds, 5 assists. Kiki Airfan, she finished with 15 points, 9 rebounds. After that, it was pretty much a fall off. They didn't shoot particularly well, only shot 35% from the field. But then when you bounce over to Notre Dame, man, one of my favorite players to watch is Hannah Hidalgo. 24 points, 6 rebounds, 8 assists, 5 steals, 9 for 21 from the field. Then you got Olivia Miles, 20 points, 8 rebounds, 7 assists, 7 for 12 from the field, and 4 for 5 from the three, which is key. When you think about her scoring the ball. Notre Dame looked really good. USC not so good. Of course, this is A. Willie's, his team. So I'm anxious to hear what you got to say about the Notre Dame and USC matchup.
Man, so first off, it's interesting, man. The tie is here because obviously hashtag fight on. Of course, I like the Trojans. The other thing too is shout out to Niele Ivey, the coach at Notre Dame. Y'all see my handle, STL born LA Bill. St. Louis woman over there doing her thing as a head coach, man. So if you watch their stories, they literally walked into USC's trap and took over their trap. And this game wasn't in doubt to begin with. One of the things that Notre Dame is able to do when you have and I've said this extensively. USC needs to do this because they have the opportunity to do this not only with Juju Watkins, but they can also do this with TVO as well. TVO's got to be more of a point guard and facilitate because, again, when you have 2 point guards out there that can get buckets but can also facilitate, it really, really makes you very, very hard to guard because you take the predictability factor out. The opposing defense can't relax for a beat because they know nothing move unless somebody gets the ball. They can't do that when you talk about Hannah Hidalgo and Olivia Miles. And I love both of them, man. Like, one of the things that I like about Hannah Hidalgo is this. You know this. It's one thing to be a person that plays passing lanes and gets steals. It's another thing to do that and also be stout as an on-ball defender. Hannah Hidalgo is both. And man, is she a dog. She is a disruptor. So when you disrupt at the point of attack defensively, it sets the tone for your team. It gains extra possessions for your team offensively. You can get out and transition. Man, like the way that they did this, and then I think especially now when you start looking at one of the things to pay attention to with USC in particular, when you look at these teams that have talented backcourt players, talented wing players, USC's best perimeter defender Kennedy Smith, a freshman. Guess what Kennedy Smith was? Out because she's injured and she's out indefinitely. That's a big, big, big loss for USC, man. So, and that manifested itself during this game. So I also too, I feel like we need to start seeing, and Juju talked about this, being more efficient, knowing when it's time to facilitate, knowing when it's time to quote unquote save the day. USC has to start incorporating some of those talented freshmen and other players as well from a scoring standpoint, because you can't beat teams like USC. I'm sorry, like Notre Dame. You can't beat teams like South Carolina. You can't beat teams like UCLA, teams like UConn. These are the teams that you're going to have to go through if you're trying to make a Final Four run and raise a banner, and you got two people scoring and nobody else is doing any scoring. So I think that's something to pay attention to. One of the other things I'll point out as well is as crazy as Notre Dame dominated this game, imagine if Notre Dame didn't have 20 turnovers, what the score would have been. Notre Dame turned the ball over 20 times. USC, I think, turned the ball over 20 or 21 times. If Notre Dame has 14 turnovers, 10 turnovers, man, they walked a dog on USC. So I think this is a learning experience. I also think that we have to pay attention to what happens defensively with USC when their best perimeter defender is out. That's something we got to pay attention to, man.
No doubt. I mean, yeah, just a 13-point victory for Notre Dame. They remain undefeated at 5-0. USC falls to 4-1. Moving on to the next highly anticipated matchup over the weekend, South Carolina and UCLA. UCLA handles business, and 77-62. Man, I mean it never really was a game.
No.
It had some moments where you thought where you thought South Carolina was going to make a run, but it just never happened. UCLA dominated. Lauren Betts was definitely a difference maker with 11 points, 14 rebounds, 5 for 8 from the field. The biggest contribution from UCLA for me was 5'4" London Jones. Came off the bench, scored 15 points, 5 for 5 from the three. That kind of set the tone in my eyes for them. They shot 47%, almost 48% from the field, almost 48% from the three, 78% from the free throw line. They were 11 of 14. Actually, I don't know how many times you can probably say a team got to the line more than South Carolina. South Carolina only got to the free throw line 8 times. Just ended a 43-game winning streak. South Carolina had also had a streak of 33 games on a consecutive, I believe, on the road as well. Yeah, man, I wasn't surprised UCLA won. I was just surprised in the fashion of how they won. I didn't think they would be as dominant. But you and I have talked about what life is going to be like for South Carolina. If now it seems like they need the bigs to show up with the guards. And when I say guards, I'm not saying all the guards. I'm mainly talking about Pow Pow and Tessa Johnson, who consistently are putting it in the bucket. Raven Johnson was 1 for 5. Not really getting anything right there, and definitely they didn't contain anybody on defense, which is one of her strongest attributes. UCLA had 5 players in double figures. 3 of the starters was in double figures. 2 bench players came off. You had Gabriella Jasquez along with London Jones, who scored double figures. So just not a great day to be a Gamecock. I think they got some issues to work out. They definitely, that game showed how beatable they are. I mean, or can be. Are they still in a contender and in contention? Yes. But I just believe they have a lot of things to iron out. Your thoughts, Willie, on South Carolina and UCLA?
It's funny, man, because to your point, right? Like South Carolina was trying to walk into UCLA's trap and take over their trap. My city, LA, was seemed like the sports capital of the world, at least for the women's basketball and in football over last weekend. And one of the things that really stood out to me in this particular game was the fact that when you look at South Carolina, of course, with the way that Dawn coaches, Coach Staley coaches, with the way that they play as a team, they're going to come in and set the tone from an intensity standpoint. They are literally coming in to try and buffalo you. And no pun intended, we're going to get to the Buffs in football later, but they're going to try and do that. The difference is when they were doing that, when they would come in and set their mentality and we're going to impose our will on you as a team, they also had the best player on the floor, whether that was Aaliyah Boston, whether that was obviously Asia Wilson. There were times as well with Camila Cardoso. We have the best player on the floor. We have the player that can impact the game the most on our side. In addition to, we're going to set the tone from an intensity standpoint as well. Now they come in and try to come with the same type of intensity, dominate you with whether that's Ashlyn Watkins, whether that's Raven Johnson as well. When they come in and they do the things that they do defensively, they are trying to set the tone. They are trying to buffalo you. Right now, when they walk into a place and they try and buffalo you, when they play UCLA, they don't have the most impactful player on the floor. That would be Lauren Betts. She had the most impact on the floor in terms of that gravity that she has when she gets the ball in the paint, and everybody's got to pay attention to that, whether she's scoring or kicking it out. She's also owning the glass. Lauren Betts did in this game on Sunday. She owned the glass. She also had three blocks in that game as well and altered a bunch of shots. So for this South Carolina team, one of the things that was really surprising to me, fam, is Raven Johnson made a three. The first three she made this season. She was 0 for 13 at that point from three-point range. So for me, watching this team, and I've said this to you before offline, I really wanted to see a jump from Raven. I also wanted to see a jump offensively from Ashlyn Watkins. And they are energy players. They bring that energy. They do that. But also, if you're going to have them on the floor, they got to give you something offensively. And the other thing that was really telling for me also, and you and I talked about this, we have to see the development and the matriculation from a basketball standpoint of Lasia Wiley, going from being this awesome person that puts on the show every time they have the ball in their hands to I can put on the show, but I can also make the basic play as well when we need that, and knowing when to do which. And that's a give and take between Coach Staley and Wiley, because Coach Staley, being a creative player herself, also has to know and understand, okay, I can't coach the creativity out of her, Wiley, but I also got to, when she needs to make the hit the single instead of going for the home run, there has to be a level of accountability in that, because you have to know what to do at what time. And we're just in the second season of this relationship. That has to continue to evolve if South Carolina wants to go to that next level, because Wiley's going to have to control the game. And that she becomes that X factor that, okay, we got potentially the best player on the floor. Now, you and I talk about this as well. Here's the other thing that I feel like needs to happen with this team. At some point, it's consistently game in or game out, or if it's just junctures during the game. For this particular team, Joyce Edwards at times is going to have to be the best player. And that's asking a lot of a freshman who is not necessarily saying their team isn't saying, okay, we're going to get the ball to Joyce and we're going to let her make her mistakes and we're going to live with all that, because all of our resources are devoted to developing her. That's not necessarily where South Carolina is as a team, because they have so many other experienced pieces. But at the same time, when you look at their roster, the player that has the potential to be the best player on the floor game in and game out is Joyce Edwards. And Coach Staley said at the beginning of the season, because she's so talented, we're going to give her as much as she can handle. Time for her to start taking some of that so she can start handling that. Joyce has got to take that next step for this team because in addition to being dogs, you also got to have somebody who can just boogie and get it done. And Joyce has to be that player. Shout out to Pow Pow. Shout out to Tessa Johnson, always hooping. Pow Pow has really improved as a player, not just being a spot up shooter. She's putting the ball on the ground some, but in terms of impact and being able to impact the game in multiple areas, literally being the best player on the floor, whether that's for an entire game or that's during stretches. I feel like Joyce Edwards has to get that to the South Carolina team.
No, no doubt. I think one of the key things that you mentioned for me was for Wiley, Miss the kind of role she played her freshman year. You could afford that, like to have somebody come in, wow you for a few minutes or different things like that. But now when you become the focal point of the team or the offense, like now it becomes where you got to be ready to take more of a control and leadership stance, especially when you know that Raven Johnson is not a scorer. Like she's not even a playmaker in my eyes. Like I mean, like I say, she's a steady defender, and you get what you get on offense. But right now, it's been nothing but Pow Pow and Tessa Johnson still coming off the bench, which is, of course, they're going to have a lapse in their schedule, not anytime soon, where they'll be able to integrate some other players in there. But those are the only two that's scoring right now. So for Wally kind of being on the island, not really knowing what's going on with her, I think that's going to be a something to watch out for because everybody was expecting her to come in and be the lead guard and this generational talent that Don Staley has talked about, but not really seeing it. And honestly, I've seen some people talk about that her style of play really doesn't fit South Carolina full time. Like South Carolina is not running consistently. Like they're not getting out and running like that. I would say, even like a team like Notre Dame is looking to push. Like USC is looking to push. Like these teams are like getting out in transition, but that's not really South Carolina. South Carolina plays like that off turnovers, but they don't consistently like push the ball down anybody's throat because you got bigs that they're trying to get the ball to and stuff like that, and they don't play fast. So that's going to be something to watch. Like you mentioned, Lauren Betts had 4 blocks. The 4 assists was key because she was definitely catching it in the post, kicking it opposite, and that's where they were getting a lot of their threes. As much as I get on Lauren Betts, I mean, she was out there working. Another college game that took place on Monday, you had LSU, man, had a strong comeback against Washington, who was on the verge of defeating LSU into a last-second bucket by Kaylin Gilbert to help LSU win 68-67. LSU has been flying under the radar because they haven't really had, a real tough matchup per se up until the Washington game that took place on Monday. But Flage has been one of my favorite players thus far. I could say a lot, but I won't go into it because that'll be a whole nother topic. But I felt like the ball should have been in her hands more last year. But anyway, she finished with 19 points. Anissa Morrow, another double-double, 19 points, 13 rebounds. Samaya Smith, 16 points, 15 rebounds. People are not talking a lot about LSU, but, man, they have a boatload of talent, like in size, length, shooting, hit or miss here and there. But that game, I believe, was over in the Bahamas. So, on the road games and stuff like that, sometimes the shooting can be what it is what it is. Savia Sellers, she finished with 24 points, for Washington, shot 4 for 8 from the three. But yeah, just a pretty strong comeback, and that's kind of setting up for games that's coming up on Wednesday. It's nice stretch of games. We'll probably end up recapping those games sometime
Of
soon.
course. Oh
You got
yeah.
LSU, NC State. NC State, their strength of schedule right now is tough.
Playing
Um,
everybody.
yeah, then you got Duke and Oklahoma. Oklahoma's still undefeated at 6-0. USC will be taking on Seton Hall. UConn and Ole Miss be matching up. Ole Miss is another team that's taking on all challengers.
They
So
are.
definitely be on the lookout for those Wednesday stretch of games as women's college basketball is heating up towards December. Now we moving on over to college football. Not the best week for us, man.
No, man. No.
Not the best week at all, man. But I was kind of nervous about this game. Kansas Jayhawks came in on fire and knocked off two previous ranked opponents and made it their third, unfortunately, on Saturday as they defeated Colorado 37-21. Mr. Neal, Devin Neal for Kansas was the show. He had 207 yards rushing, 3 touchdowns. Also had a receiving touchdown, had 80 yards receiving, almost 300 all-purpose yards. Kansas looked like the more prepared, more ready team. Buffalo's, I mentioned, the Buffalo defense never got on the plane to the game. Bunch of missed tackles, blown assignments. This was not a good look at all for Colorado, as even Prime said. They had control of their destiny, and they faked and they fumbled it. Shador finished with 266 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, 23 for 29. Travis Hunter, 125 yards receiving, 8 catches, 2 touchdowns. But yeah, just not a good performance for Colorado. Now they're going to need a win this week against Oklahoma State. That game is on Friday. They're going to need a win and some help. But hey, Willie, not a lot of good things to say about our Buffaloes, but hey, still got a shot. But I hate when you have to put your prayers in somebody else's hands. Your thoughts on the Colorado and Kansas game?
Man, so if everybody has been walking with us, they know that I've been saying a lot about the things that I would like cleaned up as it relates to our Buffs is getting off to slow starts, which they did again. They spotted Kansas. I think they got down 10-0, and then I think at one point it's like 17-7. So they spotted Kansas, number one. And then the second thing that I've been talking about as well is, in addition to the spotting points early, you can't keep doing that. The other thing is you can't keep getting penalized. And no penalties are good penalties, but just like turnovers, penalties at certain times can be daggers. And there were times when their defense can get off the field. Penalty, giving Kansas the ball for a longer stretch of time when your defense is having problems. There were times as well they would get key completions down the field. Penalty, let's bring it back. Now you're in second and long, 1st and 25, and you're trying to convert a first down and keep the chains moving, and you're 1st and 25 instead of 1st and 10 down on the others in the opponent's territory. So I felt like those are things that really, really plague them. And those are things that, quite frankly, they've been doing all year. But the fact that Shador is dynamic, the defense would make timely plays, and Travis Hunter is him, those things were bailing them out. So I really wanted to see them play a clean game. And the problem was, and we talked about this last week for everybody that walks with us, I had said too, Kansas is getting healthy at the right time. Jalen Daniels had a back issue, was out for the majority of last year. Took some time to sort of ease into it, but this is a dynamic dude that's also from the West. Get you a quarter if you want to get you a quarterback, you want to play well, go to the West and go get you a guy. So here's another one, right? So, dude, Duke has got a guy, Malik Murphy. We got dudes all over the country that are from the West putting in work. Shout out to Bryce Young too with the Chiefs, almost beating the Chiefs. And Patrick Mahomes is like, yeah, shout out to Bryce Young, another dude from the West. So say that because we got these guys that are out here making plays, and they could not stop Jalen Daniels. They couldn't stop Devin Neal. Devin Neal is as a pro, but he really looked like a pro against our Bucks. And the other thing is, you know this, man, from coaching and playing yourself. Sometimes when you're in games and those plays that you normally make, and all of a sudden you're just a beat behind and you can't make that play to flip it, it almost is indicative of how the game is going. If you remember this throughout that game, there were a couple plays where Travis could have got interceptions that would have turned the game. And he was just a beat short on both of them. And you're just watching, you're like, man, it's just that type of day. And that's what it seemed like watching the man. But again, eight more penalties in this game. And then there were a couple more that were actually declined because Kansas got touchdowns or they ended up getting first downs, so they actually declined the penalty. But you can't keep getting penalized, and you can't keep spotting teams if you want to win and make a run and be in the playoff. And that's exactly what they did again this week.
That is correct. And when you talk about penalties, 8 penalties for 65 yards, and like you said, they came in crucial times. Yeah, like I'm really gonna be intrigued. Now Kansas State is 3-8. Colorado, falls to 8-3, 6-2 in the Big 12. Big log jam in the Big 12 right now, so everybody is gonna be on edge this weekend to see what happens with a lot of the Big 12 teams. Now, of course, my Buckeyes, they got the big game this weekend against that team up north. Took care of business against Indiana, 38-15. Rocky start, but Ohio State always starts off slow. And then they picked it up, blitzed, the quarterback for Indiana,
Curtis Roy.
Curtis Roy, realized he couldn't move, and they just attacked him. Sacked him numerous times. So yeah, we at Ohio State, I mean, it's at 2 things every year right about now. It's beat Michigan and go on to the playoffs in hopes of winning a national title. Most people still, even though we're the number 2 team in the country, a lot of people still have Ohio State the favorite to win it. And hopefully that happens. I would say coming up this week against Michigan, I still got sometimes I still, in a rivalry game, it doesn't always matter the records or anything like that. Michigan is obviously not having the best season, but I'm taking that my Buckeyes will be able to handle business and start gearing up and getting ready for obviously then the Big Ten championship and then the playoffs. So see how that goes. Just probing around, college football. No other games really intrigued me outside of watching the Bucks.
Man, we beat UCLA.
Well, yeah. I mean, I expect you to keep up with that, but nothing too serious. Probing around. UNLV in the top 25. They knocked off San Jose State 27-16. The Notre Dame and Army game, that was kind of intriguing for me because I wondered how Notre Dame was going to, defend, all the running and everything like that from the Army, but had no problem. 49-14. Notre Dame is now 10-1. Big shocker. Oklahoma held Alabama to 3 points. DeBoer, man, the hot seat is probably now. Like, uh, yeah,
Facts. Facts.
yeah. I mean, yeah, I don't even remember the last time I can think about Alabama not scoring a touchdown in a football game, and
Crazy.
let alone this was a game that technically they were supposed to win. I mean, Oklahoma is sitting at 6-5 after the win, but a 500 team. Alabama definitely on the outside looking in. I don't think a three loss team gets in to the playoffs. I mean, we'll see, but I don't see it happening. Um, Outside of that, I mean, that was the biggest news. And Miami's still they're 10-1, holding ground in the ACC. Um, Georgia knocked off Massachusetts 59-21, but Tennessee 56-0 to UTEP. But Boise State, Ashon Genty, I think he ran for 169 yards and a touchdown. We'll start talking about that Heisman race more and more as time permits, but that'll pretty much wrap it up for college football. The NFL, Week 12, Browns knocked off the Steelers in a bipolar weather storm.
Hold
Start
on. Man, let me say this real quick. Man, how is Jameis against Lamar and then against Russell Wilson? Jameis don't play around. Get those W's up, man.
hey, hey,
I ain't gonna do what he does with the W's on camera, fam. But man, against those dudes, Jameis becomes Heisman Jameis against those dudes, man.
I'm telling you, that's what it looks like. Yeah, they knocked out the Steelers 24-19. Vikings defeat the Bears. Vikings 9-2. The Colts defeated by the Detroit Lions 24-6. Giants 30-7. Out of Daniel Jones' era is now officially have come to an end. It's same
I
same old
got.
same old.
Can I say something real quick
Oh,
about the
no doubt.
Giants, man? Hey, brother, was your love really true? You just talked to the Giants like how that song go. You just somebody I used to know. That's how you look at the Giants, man. Like you ain't even in love though. You like, yeah, the Giants, man. Like, do you even date the Giants?
Oh, no, man. No, no, no. Hey, but what they say once they show you who they are, believe them. That
Believe them.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's what they show me, and look at it. Saquon is having he now is in the MVP race, and we'll get to that. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, Dolphins defeat the Patriots. Commanders fall to the Cowboys, man, in dramatic fashion, man.
Yeah.
I was kind of disappointed in that. Commanders now 7-5. Chiefs 10-1 beat Carolina. Texans, man, we hitting a rock, hitting a brick wall right now, losing to the Titans 32-27. Raiders and Broncos 29-19.
Man, that didn't happen. We just gonna fast forward that
And then
one.
the Packers 38-10 over the 49ers, man. Jordan Love 163 yards passing, 2 touchdowns. Josh Jacobs 106 yards rushing, 3 touchdowns. Um, and yeah, just keep it moving along. We get to Seahawks 16-6 over the Cardinals, and then the Eagles 37-20 over the Rams. That was Sunday Night Football. As I mentioned, Saquon Barkley, 26 carries, 255 yards, 2 touchdowns. Also, four receptions, 47 yards. A.J. Brown, 6 catches, 109 yards, and a touchdown. Jalen Hurts, 15 for 22, 179 yards, and a passing touchdown. Philly is now 9-2, and the Ravens, man, they took care of business. 30-23 over the Chargers. They're now 8-4. Lamar Jackson, 177 yards passing, 2 touchdowns. King Henry, 24 carries, 140 yards. Mark Andrews, a receiving touchdown. Rashad Bateman, a receiving touchdown. That pretty much wraps it up for this week in the NFL and for our show. Hey, Willie, you got anything you want to get off your chest or anything you think we might miss?
And man, we got it all under control, man. I'm like, it's hard for me. How can I resist the Ravens when they were in my city? When my city was on fire for sports. I'm sitting over there looking at all this stuff. I'm watching the Ravens, man. So I'm watching, everybody's talking about who's MVP and all those different things, man. Look at all the categories Lamar Jackson is first in the NFL as it relates to quarterbacks, man. Like it's when they are on their game and they're doing what they're supposed to do. What's so interesting about the Ravens is their defense is just like the Buffaloes, man. Like they get all these penalties and they do all these different things, and it's like, man, like not only are these penalties not good, but they're just happen at the most inopportune times. That's the thing that I'm all in as a fan with them, but it makes me pause for concern in terms of being all in with them as winning the Super Bowl because they put so much pressure on their offense. And Lamar and Derrick Henry, those guys are great, but their defense with the constant pass interference. I love that they're aggressive, but good gracious, man. Every time I look up, pass interference, pass interference, pass interference. So them doing that and giving up all those yards, giving up all those penalties, it makes me question them as a team, man, in terms of winning it all. But, man, they sure did look appealing in my city. I can tell you that.
Yeah, from my last words, it's holidays coming up. We got Thanksgiving, time to spend with family, loved ones. Hope everybody has a safe and happy holiday. I'll be somewhere trolling on your nearest Facebook post and watching a lot of these games. Matter of fact, kind of failed to mention that the games that's actually coming on for Thanksgiving, I think is the let me check real quick.
The Cowboys play
the Cowboys. I think it's the Cowboys and the Giants. I want to say the Giants, if I'm not mistaken.
It's
Cowboys
Cowboys
and the Giants. Bears,
and the Lions
Bears
always
and
play.
Lions.
Yeah.
And then you got the Dolphins and the Packers. And now you got the Bears and the Lions at 12:30, Giants and Cowboys 4:30, and Dolphins and Packers at 8:20. And then also, I'm kind of glad that we even talked about this because you got some women's college games on Thanksgiving as well. I believe South Carolina is playing Iowa State. That's 1:30 on Fox. Then you got Ohio State. They're playing Old Dominion. And then Rhode Island and Iowa. Iowa's undefeated right now. I watch them when they're on. I catch them. Still playing hard. Still playing tough. They got a solidified score. Not like what they're used to seeing, but still getting the job done. So that's what I'll be doing. And I think me and my girl, we went and got some lamb chops the other day. So we doing something different, man. We're tired of the same old turkey, ham, and
I don't blame you.
And all that other stuff. So, like I said, just everybody have a safe, fun, happy holiday. And we'll probably be coming back with another episode sometime after the holiday, just recapping all the things that took place. And remember, if you can't remember anything about me, just remember I'm here to laugh, show love, promote, talk sports, movies, joke, and troll. Catch us on the next episode.
If you lactose intolerant, leave the house. Don't be unnecessarily beefing with your family over the holiday.
We out.